So hi everyone, I'm still in Melbourne. I've been at PAX Australia for the last 3 days. I've actually been in Melbourne for a little bit longer and I leave tomorrow, but I'm waiting on some B-roll to do videos on the Final Fantasy VII Remake, Pokemon Sword and Shield, and a few other things. So I thought in the meantime, because I have been playing Little Town Hero quite a bit over the past few days, I'd answer some of your questions because the marketing for it isn't really there. A lot of people forgot or didn't even really know that it was coming out, and a lot of people still don't even know what it is. So I apologize for the bad audio, I apologize for the crappy lighting, but I'm still in the hotel and I'm using a potato laptop for all of this anyway. The review embargo isn't until the 16th, so I'm supposed to keep my personal feelings out of it and just answer things factually for you, and luckily most of the questions are in line with that. So let's just dive in. First one is from Rafe on Twitter. He says, will the player eventually get to leave the town at all? Question mark. So in the pre-release material, it was said that this takes place within this town. It's only in this town. I haven't been able to leave the town yet, despite the fact that part of the story is that the main protagonist does want to leave the town. He wants to see the outside world. But a point here I have to say is, when it's a town, it's not just like, you know, a handful of little things, a handful of little buildings or a handful of little houses. It's got a farm district, and it's got a mine district, and it's got a market district, it's got a neighborhood district. So it's quite a large area. Like it says it takes place in this town, and it makes it seem like it's very small, but the town is just kind of like a regular game world. It just happens to be one town. The next one from Mr. Yeloso from Twitter. Does the game draw anything or any inspiration from Pokemon? No, and yes. I think that I've been thinking this more and more, but I think that this was probably at some stage designed to be some kind of Pokemon game, some kind of Pokemon spin-off, possibly not even the gameplay wise, but the engine, the aesthetic, the graphics, they're better than, I think these are more fitting for Pokemon. The look of this game is more fitting for Pokemon than Let's Go, Eevee and Pikachu was. I actually think that this art style and this engine would make an amazing Pokemon Red and Blue remake like Let's Go was, and I have no idea why Game Freak chose to use this fantastic looking engine with a very Pokemon Red and Blue, Pokemon Gold and Silver aesthetic to it for this game and not for a Pokemon game. But other than that, not really. The battle system is completely different. There's no monster collecting mechanics. I guess you could say maybe the story is a little bit Pokemon, but in the same way that it's a story like a lot of JRPGs. So yeah, I don't really think that there's a whole lot of Pokemon happening in this game. Martin Hens from Twitter. First of all, I would like to ask about the length of the game. Secondly, I would like to know how the battles function. Is it turn-based with HP or MP, or is there something else going on? I really appreciate you doing this. Okay, so that's a little bit to unpack. So the length of the game, I'm not 100% sure yet. I've played for just over 10 hours and I am in Chapter 5. I don't know how many chapters there are in total, and I'm not totally finished Chapter 5. I don't know how far I am through with that, but I think I'm probably about 3/4 of the way through Chapter 5. So I think it's a fairly lengthy game. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe 20 hours, 20, 25, unless, you know, Chapter 5 is really close to the end, but I imagine, yeah, probably still got another 10 hours. Now, in terms of the battles, it is turn-based, but it is totally different from anything you're thinking of in terms of, like, HP and MP. There are kind of those things, but the way it works is totally different. It kind of reminds me of, and this is a weird one, Dungeon Dice Monsters, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dungeon Dice Monsters on Game Boy or Game Boy Advance. Not in that, you summon things and create a map or anything like that, but your character and indeed the enemy have 3 hearts, and that's their HP, and you can only take a heart once per turn. And you also have to break down the defenses and that kind of thing to be able to attack the hearts directly. And you also move around the town in between turns, which again just kind of reminds me of moving around the Dungeon Dice Monsters map. And not only that, but the things that you use, which are called isits and dazits, they have a attack and a defense rating, and the attack actually takes away the defense. So each of them has like its own individual health. I will talk a little bit more about this because I imagine there's going to be a lot of combat questions, so we'll delve a little bit deeper into it. But it's a very unique battle system. Speak of the devil, T-Paul from Twitter. My main question is about the battle system, which doesn't seem well explained at all in the trailers, so I'm really confused how it works, and that it would be a major factor in whether or not I play. Okay, so let's just talk about the battle system, and the next question, which I'll just jump in here as well, is from Kieran Das from Twitter, who says, how do the battles feel? I heard secondhand that battles can be pretty long, up to 30 minutes. So let's just talk about the battle system. Yes, battles can be very long. I have no doubt that a battle could easily go for 30 minutes. I don't know if I've broken that already. I may have, but they can definitely go long. But you have to look at battles not just as an individual, like it's not a battle in the same sense as most games would see it as a battle. A battle itself is like its own puzzle. It's like its own dungeon, even though you never leave the battle screen. So let's just start with how it starts. So both you and the enemy character or the monster, you have 3 hearts each, and then you also have guts, which is like a defense meter that you have to break down before you can attack the hearts. So if you have 9 guts, that means that the enemy has to deal 9 damage to you before they can deal damage to you to take 1 heart away. And then once 1 heart gets taken away, your guts refreshes, so you have to do that over again. And it's the same with you attacking the enemy. And the way that attacks work is 1 single turn, you are given a random amount of ideas, which are different types of attacks or defense. They are essentially like cards, but they're called isits and dazits. They all start off as isits, which means that they can't be used. They're like an empty crystal that need to be charged. And you have a resource, BP, that you use to charge the cards with. And each of the ideas has its own cost. So if you have 3 BP, then you can obviously only charge something with 3 or less for its cost. Once you charge them, they become dazits. And dazits then can be used. The enemy obviously has their own ideas on the other side, and each idea either has an attack or defense, or it's just a straight up special ability. There are 3 types. There are attack ideas, which are red, there are defense ideas, which are yellow, and there are the ability ones, which are blue. Blue ones just can be used automatically and the phase doesn't end, so you can use them and they'll have a special effect, like maybe they'll buff your other ideas, or maybe they'll attack, they'll do 2 damage to all enemies' ideas, something like that. They can be used and the enemy doesn't attack in that phase. And the enemy can get special abilities as well. So your goal in each phase or each turn is to destroy the enemy's idea. And you break it by taking away all of its defense, all of its health. So if they're about to use an idea that has 4 attack and 2 health, you want to use an idea that has at least 2 attack, because it will deal 2 damage to that and break that idea. Breaking all the enemy's ideas in a single turn causes an all break, and during an all break you can use an attack Dazzit, and it has to be a charged attack Dazzit to deal damage either to their guts or their hearts. You can only take 1 heart per turn. And it's just now I realized that I've been calling them BP, but it's actually just power. So it's BP is what you earn if you do an all break and don't have any attack Dazzits available to use. So you earn a BP, which can be used to do things like recharge your ideas or switch your current active ideas from your headspace into the playable area. In between turns, you will move somewhere on the map. You roll a dice between 1 and 4, and that's how many spaces you move. And spaces can have things like other townspeople that will offer you support. They'll have a special support ability. There might be something like a cannon on that space, which can be again used as a kind of support ability. And there can also be traps. An enemy can set a trap, or something like I've seen one where there's a bug, and if you don't kill the bug in that turn, then the enemy eats it and becomes stronger. So there can be that kind of thing on the spaces, which happens in the town. So basically you have to destroy the enemy's guts 3 times and attack them directly in the heart 3 times to kill it. So it can go on quite a long time, because it can take several turns just to get the enemy's guts down. The thing you use to charge up the Izzits into Dazzits is just power, and after each turn you progressively gain more power to spend charging your Izzits and Dazzits. And that's sort of the very basic version, because Izzits and Dazzits can get special sort of extra abilities of their own, things like Pierce, where if your Dazzit has Pierce, it will take damage off your opponent's guts if your attack is higher than the enemy's idea's defense. So yeah, it is quite complicated, but it is dealt out to you at a very reasonable pace. You're not just thrown in with all these extra mechanics straight from the beginning. It teaches you the basics very well, and keeps introducing those little extra things very well. Like, I have picked it up, I think, quite effectively just from playing the game as I have been. Oh yes, one thing I haven't talked about with the combat is the way ideas happen. Ideas you have in your headspace, and you are given a random assortment from the start. Between turns, the ones that you've used up will get replenished in the next turn. They'll just randomly get taken from your headspace. You can use the BP that you collect by doing all breaks and not being able to attack the enemy to swap them in and out, or return ideas to your headspace, because you can run out. Running out means you can only struggle, which means you can. It's basically a card that has 1 attack, 1 defense, and you eat that damage directly to you. Taking damage to a heart, not to your guts, but so losing a heart automatically replenishes all of your ideas to your headspace. There are also other ways to do that. By spending BP, you can revive your ideas, and also certain townspeople have the support ability to return your ideas. Moving on to YouTube, Minako Hayashi says, "Why is this more hype than Pokemon?" Well, I don't think it really is. It's certainly not the sentiment I've been seeing, because most people don't even know this is coming out. The marketing has been very low. I played Pokemon Sword and Shield at PAX Australia. I don't know whether I could say I'm more excited about that than I have been with playing Little Town Hero, but I think they both have their own merit. Hawkeye64, do you feel the combat drags on a bit too long? So we spoke about combat at length in as simple terms as I could come up with. As I said back there, I could easily see a fight going for 30 minutes or more. But you do have to look at it. It's not just like a combat encounter, because each turn is different. Each turn, you have the same sort of goal each turn, but the way to get there is vastly different every single turn. An enemy encounter, a monster encounter, you have to look at as if you're doing a dungeon, like a whole dungeon in another game, because that's kind of what it's like. It's like a series of puzzles. So in that sense, I don't think that combat drags on too long. It's just a totally different way of doing combat, something completely different than I've ever experienced. William from YouTube asks, how is the combat, which we've already discussed, but he did ask, every time I watch something on the game it seems a bit simple. Is there depth to it, or is it aiming for a younger audience? So, as I've already gone through, it actually gets very technical and very in-depth. It digs deep, and I really would have to... See, I'm in two minds. Where I'm at the moment, some of these fights are really tough and require a lot of like smart management and thinking ahead and just making smart moves in general. I don't know whether you could just, randomly pick things, whether, a younger child maybe that isn't thinking so much. I don't know whether you can just bumble your way through this, because it can get quite tricky. I mean, probably from the second boss onwards, you're looking at something that you do have to think about quite seriously. MacZ 2021 asked, did Toby Fox do the entire soundtrack or just some of the music? I actually don't know if he did all of it. From what I've heard, the music in general is pretty good. It's very fitting. It's not like, a big epic score because it's not that kind of game. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure if he did all of it or just some of it, but it's all been good, so fitting so far. Joe Keir 4754 from YouTube, is it me or is this game not getting a physical release? I don't think it's getting a physical release. No, I haven't seen anything on it. I don't know if some regions will or not. The Asia region usually seems to get their own special little physical version, but I haven't even seen anything on that at the moment, so I'll keep an eye out though. So, xBloodAngelX10 from YouTube asks, just want to know if it's any fun. Like, is it an adventure or like an Animal Crossing action game? It just seems like it. So this is what I was talking about. There are a lot of people confused about what this actually is, and I was one of them. But I can basically tell you that it's just an RPG. It's just a regular JRPG, just with an interesting take on combat that sort of combines a dungeon style system with combat into one thing. But it has a main story, a cast of characters, side quests. There's a talent tree, character building type system. It's all there. It's a regular RPG. You can look at it that way. WatcherGirl9 from YouTube asks, probably a nitpicky question, are you able to select the gender of the main character? This isn't a question that affects me buying it or not, just curious. So I kind of wondered this myself, but no. So the main character is always male. The way the story's panning out at the moment, I guess the way they've written it is you sort of have to be male, but it probably wouldn't have taken much tweaking to allow a male or female protagonist. Either way, I mean, obviously this is just the story they wanted to tell. As it is, it's not one of those stories where, you can only pick male and it wouldn't have mattered if you could pick female. There is several parts of the story that specifically are about you being male. So yeah, you're male. Vincent Waller asks, are you having fun with the game or is this a game that drains you? So again, I wanted to keep subjective stuff for the review, but I can say that it's not draining me. I certainly am not dreading going back and playing it. I've been playing it on and off for, in between as much as I can with packs and everything like that. I've been playing it for the last 4 days or so and I'm not sick of it. Armando Villa asks, is there a large variety of enemies and are there recolors? So this is something else that sort of ties into the whole way that combat works, because one single fight is sort of, can be half an hour or more, and is sort of like its own dungeon, and its own whole level. There aren't lots of enemies, it's not like you'll go around and you have a million little fights and then one boss fight. Each boss is its own entire dungeon, if you will. In terms of there being lots of different enemies, there obviously aren't going to be as many in other games, but in terms of variety, they are all vastly different from one another. It's not like, boss number 1 is this monster, and boss number 2 is that monster with an extra tentacle or a different color. They are all completely different. So the variety is great. In between them, there's just, I think you're probably looking at, I'd have to guess somewhere probably maybe 20 enemies in total, maybe. But I'd say they're very long, in-depth fights, and they're very cool monster designs too, I have to say. They're quite cool to look at. Proc of the Dawn asks, and this is the last question, how does character progression work? So I mentioned like a talent tree-like system. You get Eureka points from winning battles that you can use to increase the power or special abilities of your ideas, and you can choose the way you want to spend those points. So do you want to start buffing up your defense ideas? Do you want to improve the blue ideas, like the ability ones? You can sort of choose how you want to spend those Eureka points, but by the looks of it, I think you'll eventually unlock everything on the talent tree like Eureka board, because I'm not that far off now. I don't think it might expand after you fill it up, I'm not sure, but that's basically how it works. You get points and you spend them how you want to spend them. So that's all. The video turned out a lot longer than I thought because of trying to explain the combat. I'm sorry if it wasn't totally 100% clear, but it is a very tricky system to explain. I think you really do have to try it for yourself, get your hands on it, to get to wrap your mind around exactly how it works. But I do want to assure you that it does do a very good job at teaching you the system. So that's all for now. If you have any follow-up questions, you can chuck them down below, and I'll try and answer them if I can. My review will hopefully be going up in the next couple of days. When the review embargo lifts, I should be finished by then because I'm heading home tomorrow, so I'll have plenty of time to just sit down and smash out the rest of this game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.
Thanks for the liking, subscribing, and the sharing.